This will be a technical series on the basics of UtiliPad operation. Begin by opening up UtiliPad and entering into an existing job. Jobs were described on a previous version. Notice it automatically locates me. That's because I have integrated location services turned on. We're going to keep that on for the duration of this job. We're going to hit the back button, take us back to the main map screen. To zoom in, I'm going to use basic iPad gestures by using two fingers closing together. That allows me to zoom in. Doing the opposite, using two fingers and spreading them apart, will allow me to zoom back out. So very basic Google Map on an iPad gestures. If I go to my sprocket button or my settings down the bottom, you can see the next thing I want to show you is that you can quickly change the type of map that you have for your Google Maps. I'm going from hybrid over to a normal view. I can go over to a terrain view, and then I can see mountainous regions. Of course, where we are, it's kind of flat, as you can see, so I'm going to actually show you none. Maybe you're using too much background data, you're in a poor cell connectivity area, you can run completely disconnected. We're going to go back to our normal view, and I'm going to go down to the third icon over, which is a center on GPS. That is a default icon, but if I click on it, it can change to a hand. That will allow me to pan off my map without snapping back to the GPS automatically. I can then zoom into any other area, and you notice the screen does not automatically snap back. I'm going to go to this downtown Atlanta area, and I'm going to use two fingers and rotate them, and that'll actually rotate my map. Notice that it corresponds to the north arrow on the top left hand side of the screen. I then use two fingers and drag both up, and that'll give me a perspective view. The cool thing about the perspective view, if you're in a downtown area like Atlanta, you're going to get building footprints, and it'll give you a perspective view of what your data collection would look like amongst those buildings. Kind of a neat tool. You notice that my north arrow is not exactly up. If you ever want to go back to north up, I find the easiest way is to completely close the application, then come back, open it up, reopen your job. It automatically resets the north arrow, resets the map image to a Google hybrid, and recenters on GPS by default. And you notice how quick that happens. It just takes a couple seconds. So if you ever want to reset your jobs, just simply exit out, open it back up. The next thing we're going to do is basic data collection. At the top of the screen, we have our job name and then an icon that represents a line. In UtiliPad, we're always building lines. You can use a custom defined line set. You can see in this particular job I have an overhead and underground line. I'm going to select to do an underground line. If I do not select a line, it will automatically collect data on a default line. So it's important to remember, usually going up there and selecting the line you want to work on before you do any data collection. Then what I'm going to do is use this Google teardrop button, second icon over. That's our collect GPS location. It opens up. It's going to give me a place to create a location name and a note. By default, the naming system goes 1, 2, 3, 4, just counts up, and I can type in any note I want. I'm just going to use note. I then have a lat lon, and then over on the right hand side I have four new features to UtiliPad: a parent, a location type, a line type, a camera, sensor data, which we'll discuss later, and then my horizontal and vertical precision. Of course, you notice my horizontal and vertical precision are pretty bad right now. That's because I'm using integrated location services. In future videos, we're going to connect to our all-star receiver, and you'll see the accuracy go down. What I also want you to notice is that my location type is set to something called a parent partner location. I'm going to click on it and choose to use something called a poll instead of my default partner location. So I select poll, and then I'm going to click save at the top right hand side, and it creates my GPS position, called it location number 1. It is the first point on my underground line, and it gave it my poll icon. So we feel that location type is really cool because you can set unique icon types to identify what type of location on your line it was directly from the map. The next thing I do is I go to my settings again, and I'm going to select tap to place. This is a new feature for UtiliPad as well. It allows me to click on any place I wish on the Google map and hold down for a couple of seconds, and it will drop a location at that position. It calls it location number 2. I can once again come in here and type a note. I'll just type in note 2. You notice that at the bottom it's the horizontal and vertical precision are blank. That's because I'm using the GPS location of the Google map where I tapped. You notice that it points back to my parent number 1, so it's building my utility line. It remembered to call that location a pole, and it remembers I'm on my underground line. Finally, I'm going to actually select a photo on this point. I'm going to use the little camera button. It opens up the integrated camera on the iPad, and I can snap a quick photo that's very high resolution and will allow me to attach that photo to my location. And then I'm going to go back up to the top right again and click my save button, and it creates my location number 2. It connects those points with a purple line, which is the color scheme for my underground line. So I've begun to collect my utility-centric data very quickly and easily. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my lines. I'm going to change the line. I'm going to change it to overhead. I'm going to use tap to place again to place another location at the corner of this building. Holding down for a couple seconds takes me into a location number 3. You notice that it's pointing back to location 2, that my pole is my default location type, and that I'm now on an overhead line. Okay, I'm going to actually change that to a different location type called shot. Hit save. You notice that it creates a red overhead line. It also creates a different icon for a location type I called shot and called it location 3. I'm going to collect a 4th location at the other corner of this building. It's going to be called location 4, and it's still on overhead. It's still a location type called shot, and it's now pointing back to location 3. On this one, I simply click in the location name, and instead of calling it 4, I'm going to call it a corner. So I can overwrite my location name at any point by just typing it in. I can also click on the parenting, and I can click on any location in my map screen and assign that as a parent rather than using the default parenting. So I change that, click save. You notice it built another overhead line. This time, instead of parenting to 3, it parented to location 1 because I changed it, and it used my shot icon type for location. So as you can see, this could be very useful for quickly identifying on a map which point was a pole, which point was a pad, which point was a road crossing, which point was a stream crossing. Any sort of icon set you want. I'm once again going to collect another position, call it location 5. I'm going to come in here. It's pointing back to corner. It's a location type called shot. And I'm going to actually manually change my line type to underground. Even though I had overhead selected in the main map, I can change my line type at any time. I can also go to this little blue thing called naming, and instead of calling it location 5, I can actually rename the automatic naming of these locations. So I'm going to call it demo and reset that number to 1 by clicking save over here on the right hand side. You will see that it now calls my location demo1-1. So I've created a prefix, a suffix, and an incrementing number. And now I'm going to hit save. You see it called it demo1-1, pointing back to my corner. It's underground line. And I'm going to allow my GPS to move, and I'm going to collect another location. This one is called Demo 2-1, and then it'll be 3-1, 4-1. Hitting save automatically parents back, so we can build lines very, very quickly. Because I have it set to overhead on the main screen, that one wasn't an underground line. It went back to overhead. The next thing is I can edit any of these locations I've collected by simply clicking on them and then clicking the edit button. So this was point 1. I had note on there. I can change my location name. If I use the default naming and I want to go back and change it, I can change it to anything I want, and then hitting save will save that change. And you can see it changes it right on the map. I called this pole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can also delete icons. So I can click on any location, delete them. Notice that by deleting a location will also delete the parenting and the lines that were related to it, because I had two different locations parenting to location 1. Deleting it deleted 2 lines. So I can go to this particular location, change my parent, point it to the corner rather than to the old location 1, and now my parenting is fixed. I've built an underground line, an overhead line, several different location type icons, several different ways of naming, and also edited and deleted locations. That concludes our video series on UtiliPad Basics.